We're about to hit a chip shortage that'll make 2021 look like a practice round, and almost nobody in tech is preparing for it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Chip shortage? Didn't we solve that? Weren't the supply chains fixed? Yeah, technically they were. But here's the thing that keeps semiconductor experts up at night. We fixed the symptom, not the disease. Let me back up for a second. In 2021 and 2022, we had this massive chip crunch. Car factories shut down. PlayStation 5s were impossible to find. Crypto miners were hoarding GPUs. It was chaos. And the world basically said, okay, never again. We're going to build more fabs. We're going to diversify suppliers. We're going to stockpile inventory. And for about 2 years, it actually worked. Supply normalized. Prices dropped. Everyone exhaled. But here's what happened next that nobody talks about. The chip industry just kept growing. AI boom hit. Data centers started ordering chips like they were going out of style. Every major tech company, OpenAI, Google, Meta, Microsoft, they're all racing to build their own silicon. And here's the kicker. The manufacturing bottleneck didn't actually go away. It just moved. See, there are only a handful of companies on Earth that can make the most advanced chips. Taiwan's Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, controls about 54% of the global foundry market. Samsung's got another chunk. Intel is trying to catch up, but they're years behind. That's it. 3 companies essentially deciding whether the entire AI industry gets the chips it needs to function. And right now, TSMC's capacity is basically maxed out. They're printing money. Their fabs are running 24/7, but they still can't keep up with demand. The waiting list for advanced chips is measured in months. Some customers are waiting 6 to 9 months just to get their orders filled. During the 2021 shortage, that was considered a crisis. Now it's just business as usual, and nobody's panicking because the shortage is happening in slow motion. But here's where it gets interesting. The demand curve isn't flattening. If anything, it's accelerating. Every new AI model requires more compute. Every company trying to compete in AI needs the latest chips. And the supply side? Well, building a new fab takes 5 to 7 years and costs upward of $20 billion. TSMC has fabs under construction. Samsung has plans. Intel is getting government subsidies to build in the US. But none of that capacity comes online before 2026 or 2027. So we have this widening gap between what the world needs and what can actually be manufactured. And unlike 2021, when the shortage hit suddenly and shocked everyone, this one is slow and predictable, which means companies that should be panicking and securing long-term supply agreements aren't, because there's no emergency feeling. It doesn't feel like a crisis yet. Here's the trillion-dollar part. Every month that advanced chip capacity sits at 100% utilization. Companies that can't get chips have to either wait, pay massive premiums, or pivot to older, slower hardware. If you're training an AI model and you're stuck waiting for chips, that's not just a delay. That's your competitors potentially leapfrogging you. If you're a startup trying to build an AI company and you can't secure chips at reasonable prices, you might not get funded. The entire competitive landscape of tech gets reshaped by who has access to silicon. And then there's geopolitics. The US is paranoid about chip dependency on Taiwan, which is fair. China is trying to build its own advanced chip industry, but it's years behind due to export restrictions. Europe is trying to create a sovereign chip industry, but they're also behind. So you've got this situation where the most critical technology input for the next decade is concentrated in one country, on one island, made by a few companies, and the demand is growing faster than supply can possibly keep up. So what actually happens when we hit the wall? Well, a few scenarios. 1. Prices spike. Companies that can afford to pay premium prices secure chips. Smaller players get priced out. 2. Innovation slows because only well-funded companies can iterate on new models. 3. We see a shift toward more efficient chips and algorithms because people have to do more with less. 4. Geopolitical pressure increases to build alternative supply chains, which takes years and billions. The reason this isn't headline news is because it's not a sudden shock. It's a slow squeeze. But by the time people realize how tight the squeeze is, it's too late to build new capacity. And that's the trillion-dollar problem. Not in losses, but in opportunity cost. How many AI breakthroughs don't happen because the researcher couldn't get chips? How many startups never launch? How much innovation gets delayed because the fundamental ingredient, silicon, is scarce. What's wild is that this is somewhat preventable. If companies were aggressive about securing long-term supply agreements now, if governments were actually investing in domestic chip manufacturing instead of just talking about it, if the industry was transparent about the real demand curve instead of just ordering more chips every quarter, we could smooth this out. But that requires admitting there's a problem when everything looks fine on the surface. So here's the thing, watch this space. In the next 18 months, you're going to start hearing about chip allocation issues. Companies are going to start talking about supply constraints. Prices are going to creep up, and people are going to act shocked, like it came out of nowhere. But it didn't. The math has been pointing to this for 2 years. If you want to actually stay ahead of these kinds of tech shifts before they hit the mainstream, subscribe. I break down the stuff that's coming before it becomes a crisis, and I keep it in plain English so you don't need a semiconductor degree to understand why it matters.